What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got another swatch review for you. Today we are continuing my small brand Sunday series, which I will link the playlist up in the cards if you haven't seen any of them yet, but basically I am just taking this time to showcase some of the smaller indie brands that I think make really unique and beautiful polishes. And today we are talking about an exciting brand called Lacquer, and this is actually a brand that I've been into for a while. I first tried them about a year ago, and I immediately fell in love with the types of polishes that they do, and I knew once I created this series that I had to showcase Lacquer. So to give a little bit of information on Lacquer, they are an independent nail polish brand that is based within the US, but they are available internationally, and all of their products are 5-free, meaning they are free of 5 of the potentially harmful ingredients that can be found in nail polish. They are vegan, meaning they do not use any animal-derived ingredients, and they're also cruelty-free, meaning they do not test their products on animals. So to me, Lacquer seems to specialize in flakies, which are just those really gorgeous, irregular, almost shards that come in nail polish. And they really utilize them in a lot of ways, whether it's a full coverage, just flaky on its own, or in a sort of Craze-like formula, which is that classic indie style that I love, or kind of somewhere in between. But more recently, they actually released these shimmery finishes that have a little bit of a hollow sparkle to them as well, and I really want to show you that formula too. So I'm going to show you a couple of collections they have. So I've got the shimmers, which is called the Autumn Prism set, and then I also have their Falloween 2 set, which is more of that flaky style that I associate with the brand. So let me show you the swatches first, then we'll talk a little bit more about pricing, availability, my thoughts on the brand from my experience so far. So roll the swatch footage. So as always, I'm using base coat underneath all of my swatches just to protect my natural nail and prevent any stains. Today it's the Orly Bonder base coat. So I'm going to start with the Autumn Prism collection, which is basically these really beautiful full coverage shimmers. And this first shade is called Smashing Pumpkins, and at first glance it just seems like a relatively basic orange, but looking at it a little bit closer, it actually has this beautiful duochromy reddish pink to yellow shimmer running throughout. It's hard to tell on camera because I think overall it gives it the illusion of being a little bit more of a reddish base color, but it's actually a pretty pumpkin-y orange. And then we have on top of that, that beautiful shimmer. And we also have what I think makes this collection very special, which is these larger silver hollow flecks. So you can see them as I move my nail around. It's subtly holographic, but it adds such a beautiful dimension. It always reminds me of like this diamond kind of flake because it's very multifaceted. And of course it was super opaque. I actually got full coverage in the first coat, but this is too. Next up we have the shade Squash Gulls, and this one is the same formula but in a really beautiful yellow shade. And this is a fun yellow because it actually has a little bit of like a muted mustardy coloring to it, and there's also a subtle shimmer in here. It's harder to tell on this one, but looking at it really closely, I can see just a hint of this sort of orangey shimmer that gives it a little bit more warmth. And this one also really impressed me with the opacity. Yellow polishes tend to be a little bit sheer on me, and I usually need 3 coats. The first coat was more sheer than the orange shade, but the second coat ended up giving me really nice full coverage. And again, we have those beautiful diamondy hollow sparkles in there. Next, we have the shade Sweater Season, and this one is a really beautiful blue undertoned green. Again, we have this really intense shimmer in there. This shimmer is pretty much the same exact color as the base, but it adds such a sparkle. And then we also have those silver hollow flecks in there. And I have to say, I think that this type of green I'm slowly realizing is my absolute favorite kind of green. Just something that kind of sits between green and blue and has that beautiful blue undertone to it. Something about that just looks so magical to me, seriously any time of year, and I think it is just stunning. So here it is in 2 coats, perfectly opaque, and I will say the formula of these is so easy and smooth to work with, and they do level out themselves on the nail. Moving on, we have the shade Books and Fuzzy Blankets, hits. And this one is a beautiful, almost slate blue base, but then we have this intense, vibrant blue shimmer in there that adds a lot of color and saturation to the polish. And then of course we have those beautiful silver hollow flakes in there. And this is the kind of shade I always associate with October, December, January. There's something really nice about having this muted base color. It almost reminds me of like a cloudy, dreary day. But then when the light hits it and you get that beautiful hollow sparkle and that really intense blue, it just looks so beautiful and vibrant. So it's just a very nice combo here. Next we have the shade Autumn Vibes, another one I was super excited about. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that, but this is a very beautiful warm toned purple base. But then we also have this duochrome shimmer in here. So looking at the shimmer head on, it actually has almost a blue tone to it. And then around the edges, you can see a little bit more of like this pinky fuchsia coloring. So it actually cools down the base color a little bit. You can see where the light is hitting my nail. It actually looks like a more cool toned purple. So this one's really cool because I feel like you get both the cool toned purple and the warm toned purple in one, and it just kind of shifts depending on how you move your nail around. So a really fun shade. And then the final shade in this first collection is Oktoberfest, and I'm really ashamed to admit that this is the one that I was the least excited for when I saw all of the bottles, because I just thought it was going to be kind of a basic duochrome shimmer, but oh my gosh, was I wrong. I think this actually ended up being my favorite. First of all, the coverage is so incredible. It really covered almost everything in that first coat, and the second coat was just so smooth and easy. It's this very beautiful duochrome shimmer that almost looks like it has a bit of a multi-chrome vibe. Head on, it looks like this beautiful pink shimmer. You can see just how vibrant it is, and then around the edges we get into orange, gold, and even a little bit of green, but we also get this beautiful brownish red kind of color as well as the hollow sparkle. Just absolutely stunning. Before we get into the second collection, I just want to show you this shade. It was from last year's fall collection, I believe, and this is one of the first shades that I tried from Rogue Lacquer, and this is when I fell in love with their really funky formulas. This shade is called Maze Craze. It's actually a full coverage flaky glitter, and there's so much going on in this. There's honestly a lot going on in all of the rest of the shades, so I'm probably going to struggle a little bit to describe them, but there is multi-chromatic and shimmery metallic flakes in here. The multi-chrome ones have this sort of purple, blue, red coloring to them, and then we also have these really intense blue, green, and gold flakes in there. So in 3 coats, it just looks so crazy. I cannot get over how fun this polish is. I think that my camera doesn't do it justice because there's so much depth to it. So now let's hop into the Falloween 2 collection, and this one is called Fall Morning Fog, and it's this super light gray crelly base, and it is absolutely packed with flakies. So it looks like there are black flakies in here. We've got some orange and gold metallic flakes, and then we also have what looks like more multi-chrome flakes, again in this very cool toned purple kind of coloring. So this one, to me, with the color combination of the purple and the orange, feels so Halloweeny, and I don't know what it is, but I have just been loving these white crelly bases that have something funky going on within the base, and that is exactly what this is. And I love it in 2 coats. I think it gives a nice subtle coloring on the nails, but in 3 coats it really looks like a party, and you can really get the full effect of like the black, the orange, the gold, the purple, and it just looks very Halloweeny to me. Then we have the shade Witching Hours, and this is another one that feels incredibly Halloweeny to me. This is another one that is a full coverage flaky glitter, and these ones I would say are a little bit bigger, but they still do give me full coverage in 3 coats. So I was actually wondering, I might be able to get away with wearing this as a topper over a color, but there's so much going on in this polish that I don't even know what color I should try it over. So we've got a couple different shades of green. We've got a little bit of like a bluish green in there, and then we also have purple, and I believe there's black in here as well, but this just gives such a cool effect. It almost looks like a shattered mirror, and it's all these Halloweeny evil kind of colors colors. I love the combination of purple and green. There's just something about it that feels very villainy to me. So another super fun one. Then we have the shade Autumn Reflections, and this is another full coverage shade, but I would say that these flakies are a lot smaller, almost verging on regular hex glitters, but it's so hard to tell because there's so much going on there, and there definitely are a lot of flakies as well. So this one has mostly this really intense metallic blue, but then we also get these gorgeous flakes that shift from gold to orange to pink and even a little bit of purple. And I have to say, in 2 coats, I thought this looked so stunning. I would actually disagree a little bit with the name because this to me feels like such a stunning winter color. I could see this for the winter holidays being so perfect and vibrant. So absolutely love it. Holding on to this one for the winter. And last but definitely not least in this collection, we have the shade True Blood. And oh man, I was so excited about this one. I did switch up my lighting very slightly for this. I wanted to put on a flashlight because this is a multi-chrome, and I think that flashlights tend to show multi-chrome pigment a little bit better. So I'm just using my regular lighting plus a little flashlight. And this one is the black multi-chrome that I absolutely adore, but Rogue Lacquer has taken it to the next level. So that base multi-chrome color, if you haven't seen it before, head on it looks black, but then around the edges you get red into orange into green, and it's such an intense shade. But they also added these silver metallic flakes in there that are really big shards. And then I'm not 100% sure on this, but it looks so sparkly that I think they might have also added some red reflective pigment in there. Now this one's super fun because I actually loved the way that it looked in 2 coats. It wasn't as intense of a multi-chrome, but I thought it really highlighted all of those glitter shards very well. Again, it kind of gave me Shattered Mirror vibes, but in 3 coats, this is such a Halloween-y shade. It's so much fun. I feel like so many brands do this black multi-chrome, so I love that they elevated it and made it something totally new. So here are all of the shades that I reviewed today. The top shades are from the Autumn Prisms, and then the bottom shades are mostly the Falloween 2, but we also have that one random one that I got last year. So I think this is such a fun brand from my experiences so far. I love how funky they get with these glitters and shard and flaky kind of stuff going on in their polishes, but I also really appreciated the shimmers because I think that this kind of works in levels here. If you're just kind of dipping your toes into indies and you don't want to get too funky, the shimmers are a really great way to kind of try it out and see how you feel about having these finishes that have a lot going on in them without it looking too crazy on the nails. But if you really want to dive in head first, I absolutely love all of the flakies. I think they're so much fun. I think they're really unique combinations, and honestly, I don't think my camera did these justice. I think that as you move your hand around, you discover so much more going on in each polish, and it's just a really fun time. So yeah, those are the polishes, and overall I really loved both collections. I love seeing them experiment with the new finish, but I'm glad that I also got an opportunity to show you some of their more classic flaky type of polishes, and this is honestly just a small hint of the types of stuff that they do. They really create so many unique, gorgeous shades, and I think this really highlights one of the reasons why I wanted to do this series in general, because these indie brands create these polishes that I don't think we'll ever see from mainstream brands. They're just so out there and exciting and different. So in this series, you're going to hear me say unique a lot, but that's because these polishes are very unique. Now, speaking of the formula, I find that they tend to be on the thicker side. So it's very much a departure from like that very thin kind of formula that I reviewed in my last small brand Sunday, but I think that there are benefits to both types of formulas. I have been trying to compare the small brand Sunday polishes to brands that you might be more familiar with. And I was thinking about it. I think if I had to choose a brand that this felt the most similar to in terms of formula, I would say it feels a little bit more like the thickness of Holo Taco. Now, obviously the finishes are incredibly different. The polishes themselves are completely different from Holo Taco, but in terms of just that very thick, opaque kind of feel to it, but it doesn't make the polish difficult to work with at all. And I think when you're working with these full coverage flakies, it makes it easier to cover up that visible nail line in fewer coats. And especially with those flakies, it kind of gives me the effect of like sponging it on, but I am just painting them on normal. So I do think that that's really impressive. And then as far as those newer shimmers go, I think that that formula was absolutely stellar. It managed to be a little bit thicker and really opaque while still feeling very smooth and buttery on the nails. So that was a very beginner friendly formula to work with. So I do think that that is actually a great place to start if you're coming from more mainstream brands. But I don't think that the flaky polishes are difficult to work with at all. Like I said, I think it just makes them a little bit more opaque. So all of the Rogue Lacquer polishes come in 13 milliliter bottles. They do have a wide flat brush that has a rounded tip, which makes application even easier. I personally am a huge fan of the wide flat brush with the rounded tip, and their polishes do vary in price based on the finish. I noticed on their website they tend to range from $10 USD to $13 USD, but these specific collections, the shimmers are $12 USD and the flakies are $11 USD each. So I'm going to link the two collections down in the description as well as the website in general so you can check out all the other stuff they have to offer. But yeah, I think this is a very exciting brand and I definitely recommend them. I think they're really fun for a very unique take on nail polishes, and I think that they just make really beautiful seasonal shades. I'm curious to see what they're going to do for the holiday season because I have a feeling that this flaky style really works very well for the winter holidays. So very much looking forward to that. But I would love to know what you guys think. If you've tried Rogue before, what are your thoughts on the polishes? What's your favorite color from them? Or if you're interested in trying them out for the first time, leave me a comment. We can chat about it. If you enjoy my swatch and review videos, please give this one a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I put out new videos every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. And I have many more brands in the Small Brand Sunday series to go, so stay tuned for those. And as usual, if you have any particular requests that you want to see me try, you can definitely leave that in the comments as well. With this series, I'm trying to give myself enough time to really test out the different polishes and see how I feel about them before I showcase them. So please be patient with me while I try them all out and kind of take my time with them. Huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon, my royal astronomer Amanda M, as well as my cosmic admirals Rocket Man's daughter, Paula, Ken, and Rosie. I really appreciate all of your support and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye. Today's fun fact question comes from Patreon supporter Bake Up Little Susie, and Bake Up Little Susie wants to know, hey film studies major, what's your favorite use of a song or other piece of music in television or film? I'm laughing because the first thought that came to mind is probably the least film major answer of all time, and I feel like I absolutely just have to tell you that answer. So for my fellow Galaxy gang that have a film degree, I'm sorry in advance for this one, but the first thing that came to mind was in Shrek 2. I can hardly say this with a straight face. That movie is a masterpiece though. But when Jennifer Saunders, who's the actor that plays the fairy godmother, when she sings I Need a Hero during that end part, ooh, that I have chills right now just talking about it. That I would argue that that cover of I Need a Hero is better than the original. In fact, actually, I would say the entire Shrek 2 soundtrack is possibly one of the best soundtracks of all time. When I was a kid and I had my little CD player, my Walkman, I actually got the Shrek 2 soundtrack as a gift and I listened to it every single day and I could tell you every single song on that CD in order and I know all the lyrics because I loved that soundtrack. But my more film major answer would have to be in the first Lord of the Rings movie. Actually, this is kind of a spoiler. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to say it here, but there is a moment in the Lord of the Rings movie, the first movie, that I thought was a very powerful use of sound. I actually talked about it in depth in my podcast. If you didn't know, I do have a podcast with my friend Leah where I watch nerdy movies for the first time ever and give my thoughts on them. And we're currently on our second season, which is about Star Wars, but our first season was about Lord of the Rings, and there were some really powerful musical or non-verbal moments to me. So we discussed those actually a lot in the first season. So I'm going to link that down in the description. You can check out the podcast if you want to know my thoughts on that in a more film majory way. But that is it, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!